Queen Lyra knelt on cold stone, while laughter echoed above her. It was not the roar of battle, not the scream of defeat. It was worse than both, soft laughter, polite mockery, the kind meant to remind her that she no longer mattered. Her crown lay cracked at her feet, its living crystal dim and lifeless. Once that crown had glowed so brightly that entire halls fell silent when she entered. Now it reflected only torchlight and shame. "Stand straight," a guard muttered, nudging her shoulder with the butt of his staff. "You are before the council, or did you forget that too, fallen queen?" Lyra swallowed and lifted her head. She had not forgotten anything. She remembered the night the stars burned, the betrayal that came from within her own court, the fleets that never arrived, the allies who turned away. She remembered standing alone on the bridge of her flagship as her empire fell piece by piece. And she remembered surviving. That was why they hated her. The council chamber was circular, carved from ancient stone older than most species in the galaxy. The seats were filled with nobles wearing polished armor and jeweled sigils. They watched her like she was a stain that refused to fade. "Lyra of House Vera," the High Counselor said, voice smooth and cruel. "Once queen of the Aurelian Reach, stripped of title, stripped of command, stripped of honor." A ripple of quiet laughter passed through the chamber. Lyra clenched her fists. "I still breathe," she said quietly. "That is not nothing." That earned louder laughter. "You breathe because we allowed it," another counselor said. "Because your humiliation serves as a lesson, a queen who failed, a ruler who lost everything." Lyra felt the familiar ache in her chest. Not anger, not anymore, just exhaustion. She had been paraded like this for years, mocked in courts, used as a warning, allowed to live but never to rise. Until today. A low hum cut through the chamber. It was not ceremonial, it was mechanical, foreign. The guard stiffened. "What is that?" someone whispered. The massive doors at the far end of the chamber began to open. Slowly, the air shifted. A different gravity entered the room, not physical but felt, heavy, certain. A figure stepped inside. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing simple dark clothing with no noble markings. No glowing armor, no sigils, just a long coat and boots scarred by travel. His hair was dark, his face calm, his eyes sharp in a way that made the guards hesitate without knowing why. "Who allowed a human here?" a counselor snapped. The word human rolled through the chamber with confusion and disdain. Lyra's breath caught. Humans were not powerful in this region. No great empire, no ancient bloodlines, just stubborn survivors from a blue planet that refused to stay quiet. The human walked forward without bowing. "My name is Ethan," he said simply, his voice carried without effort, "and I am here for her." Every eye turned to Lyra. Her heart slammed against her ribs. "For her," the High Counselor repeated, amused. "You come into our sacred chamber for a disgraced queen." Ethan stopped beside Lyra. He did not look down on her. He knelt. The chamber exploded with gasps. Lyra froze as the human lowered himself onto one knee before her, head bowed. Not in mockery, not in performance. "In respect." "I was told this galaxy forgot what she sacrificed," Ethan said calmly. "I was told she was broken, useless, finished." He looked up at her then, eyes meeting hers. "I was told wrong." Lyra felt something crack inside her chest, something she had buried deep, hope dangerous and painful. "You dare insult the council," a guard shouted, raising his weapon. Ethan did not move. "I dare tell the truth," he said. "This woman stood between her people and annihilation. She lost her throne because she chose lives over pride." Murmurs spread. Lyra whispered, "You should not be here." Ethan smiled faintly. "I know." The High Counselor leaned forward. "Human, you will leave, or you will be removed." Ethan stood. And that was when the chamber lights dimmed. Not failed, dimmed. A signal pulsed through the ancient stone. Systems waking that had not responded to council commands in centuries. Ethan's voice dropped, steady and unafraid. "You mocked a queen," he said. "Now you will remember why you once feared her." Lyra stared at him as the floor beneath them began to glow. And for the first time in years, the galaxy leaned toward her instead of away. The glow beneath the chamber floor spread like liquid light. Ancient symbols ignited one by one, crawling across the stone in patterns older than the council itself. The laughter was gone now, replaced by sharp breaths, by fear that tasted unfamiliar on noble tongues. "What have you done?" the High Counselor demanded. Ethan did not answer. Lyra felt it before she understood it, a low vibration in her bones, a hum that matched her heartbeat. The chamber was responding to her. She staggered slightly and Ethan's hand steadied her elbow. His touch was warm, real human. "I thought these systems were dead," a counselor whispered. "They were," Ethan said, "to you." The guards backed away as the light climbed the walls, revealing carvings hidden under centuries of political decay. Images of queens crowned not by bloodline, but by choice, by sacrifice. Lyra's throat tightened. "These are the trials of ascension," she breathed. "They were sealed after my grandmother's reign." "Yes," Ethan said softly, "and they only answer one kind of ruler." The High Counselor slammed his staff against the floor. "This is blasphemy. She failed, she lost her empire." "She saved her people," Ethan replied, "even after you abandoned her." The words hit like a blade. Lyra's mind flashed back to burning skis, to evacuation orders screamed into broken comms, to council ships jumping away while her fleet stayed behind to cover civilian transports. She remembered making the choice. She remembered knowing it would cost her everything. "Human," the High Counselor hissed, "you speak of matters you do not understand." Ethan finally turned to face them fully. "I understand loss," he said. "My world was nearly erased. We survived because we refused to let others decide our worth." His eyes flicked back to Lyra. "And because leaders like her exist." The floor shifted. A circular platform rose slowly, lifting Lyra and Ethan above the chamber. The light concentrated beneath her feet, pulsing brighter with each heartbeat. "Step forward," a deep, ancient voice echoed, not spoken, felt. Lyra's breath shook. "I can't," she whispered. "I'm not." Ethan squeezed her hand. "You already are." She looked at him, really looked. There was no hunger in his eyes, no desire for power, just belief, fierce and unwavering. Lyra stepped forward. The light surged. Pain flared through her chest as memories flooded her mind. Every command she had given, every life lost, every child saved, every soldier who had saluted her even as they retreated. She cried out, falling to her knees. The council shouted. Guards tried to advance but were thrown back by invisible force. "Stop this," the High Counselor screamed. The ancient voice spoke again. She did not fall. The words shook the chamber. She was cast down. The light wrapped around Lyra like wings. Ethan shielded his eyes as the platform lifted higher. The carvings on the walls changed, rewriting themselves, showing battles the council had erased from history, showing orders that proved betrayal. Gasps turned into shouts, shouts into silence. Lyra stood slowly. The pain faded, replaced by clarity. She felt taller, heavier, not with arrogance but with purpose. Her cracked crown lifted from the floor, fragments pulling together midair. The crystal flared to life, brighter than it had ever been. When it settled on her head, the chamber bowed. Not by command, by instinct. Lyra looked down at the council, at the nobles who once mocked her. "You let my people burn," she said, voice steady and amplified by something ancient. "You called it politics." The High Counselor trembled. We did what was necessary." "No," she said, "you did what was convenient." She turned to Ethan. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why help me?" He smiled, tired and honest. "Because humans don't worship thrones," he said. "We recognize leaders." The platform descended. The light dimmed but did not vanish. The ancient systems remained awake. Lyra stepped off and faced the council one last time. "This chamber no longer belongs to you," she said, "and neither does my story." Guards lowered their weapons. Outside, alarms began to sound across the capital. Not of war, of awakening. Ethan leaned close and whispered, "This is only the beginning." Lyra felt the truth of it settle into her bones. The galaxy had mocked a fallen queen. Now it would watch her rise. The council chamber was silent, but the tension in the air was thicker than any battle fog Lyra had ever faced. Even the walls seemed to hold their breath. Lyra stood with her newly restored crown shimmering under the ancient lights, and Ethan by her side. The human didn't look like a warrior, didn't look like a kingmaker. He looked ordinary, yet every noble in the room felt the weight of him. The High Counselor stepped forward, trembling slightly. "You think a human can change the balance of power here, that a simple outsider can elevate a queen who has been humiliated for years?" Ethan tilted his head calm, almost amused. "Not just a human," he said. "A human who has seen empires crumble and understands what leadership really means." Lyra's chest tightened. She had spent years hiding the pain, pretending to bow, pretending to be weak. But now, with Ethan's confidence behind her, she could feel her own courage rising. "You don't understand what it takes to rule," the High Counselor shouted. "Do you think the people will accept her? The fleets, the merchants, the colonies, you were discarded for a reason." Lyra's jaw clenched. She wanted to respond with anger, but instead she breathed deeply, letting centuries of judgment roll off her. "Perhaps," she said, voice low but resonant, "but the people are not yours to control. You cannot dictate history with fear." The chamber shifted uncomfortably. The nobles had always relied on intimidation. Authority meant fear, not respect. And here was a queen who refused to bend. Ethan stepped closer. "The galaxy doesn't need rulers who hide behind protocol and councils," he said. "It needs leaders who make hard choices and live with them, who protect their people even when it costs everything. That is what she has done, and that is why she will rise." Whispers traveled through the room. Shock, curiosity, doubt. But underneath it all, a seed of awe was planted. The High Counselor's hand shook as he pointed at Lyra. "And what if the colonies rebel? What if the fleets turn against you? What if the merchants refuse to trade?" Lyra's eyes glimmered with steel. "Then I will face them," she said, "not as a queen who fears humiliation, but as one who knows her worth." Ethan smiled faintly, but his gaze lingered on her, steady and grounding. Then unexpectedly one of the counselors, young, timid, spoke. "What about the humans?" she asked quietly. "What right do they have to interfere?" Ethan's lips curved. "Humans have no right to command," he said, "but we have the right to recognize leaders. We see courage, we see sacrifice, and we honor it." Lyra felt a warmth spread through her chest. Not pride, not vanity, something deeper, connection, trust, something she had not allowed herself in years. The platform under her feet, still glowing faintly from the awakening systems, hummed again. The carvings along the walls shifted. They showed victories not recorded in the Council's histories, battles she had fought alone, strategies she had commanded, lives she had saved. The chamber had begun to bear witness to the truth. The High Counselor's voice cracked. This cannot be." Ethan's hand found hers, steadying her but also anchoring her resolve. "It can," he said softly, "and it is happening because people like you forgot what true leadership looks like." Suddenly, a low rumble shook the chamber. The floor panels glowed, sending waves of light across the room. A holographic map of the entire Aurelian Reach sprang to life. Planets, fleets, trade routes all flickered in real time, and a single name pulsed in the center, Queen Lyra Vera. The nobles gasped. "Impossible," muttered one. "She hasn't commanded anything in years." "She has been waiting," Ethan said quietly, "and now the galaxy knows it." Lyra's voice rose, clear and commanding. "I may have been mocked, I may have been discarded, but I am not gone, I am here, and those who seek to harm my people will answer to me." A tremor passed through the room. Fear, respect, and awe collided. For the first time, the council realized they were no longer in control. Ethan leaned close and whispered, "You've taken the first step, but the galaxy doesn't give glory lightly. There will be challenges, betrayal, old enemies, even friends may falter." Lyra's lips curved into a small, determined smile. "Then I will meet them, not as the queen they mocked, but as the ruler they underestimated." Outside the chamber, alarms continued to blare, ships in orbit stirred, colonies whispered, and the first signs of a movement, one that could shift the power of the entire reach, began to take shape. Ethan watched her, a quiet pride in his eyes. "Let them come," he said. "Let them all come. We'll show them what a fallen queen looks like when she rises." And for the first time in years, Lyra didn't feel fear. She felt unstoppable. The glow from the chamber faded, but the tremor it left in Lyra's heart lingered. She stepped outside onto the balcony overlooking the capital city, the twin suns of the Aurelian Reach casting long shadows across spired towers. The city seemed smaller than she remembered, yet alive with possibilities she had thought lost. Ethan followed, silent but steady, his gaze sweeping over the horizon. "They'll resist," he said softly. "Old allies, new rivals, and those who benefited from your fall." Lyra nodded, her fingers brushing the cracked but glowing crown on her head. She had spent years feeling powerless, letting the mockery of the council define her. Now, with the human at her side, the weight of destiny felt different. Heavy, yes, but purposeful. A sudden calm alert from the palace sent her heart racing. Images flashed across her visor, fleets moving but not in formation, not all loyal. Messages from governors, some loyal, some uncertain. One name appeared repeatedly: Varen. Varen had been her advisor, her friend, and ultimately her betrayer. The one who had conspired with the council while she fought to save civilians during the Great Evacuation. She hadn't thought of him in years, not since the night the flagship burned. "He's alive," Lyra whispered, "and he's trying to manipulate the colonies." Ethan's hand found hers again. "Then he's your first challenge. Let's be careful." They moved to the strategic room, where holographic maps of fleets, colonies, and trade routes filled the air. Lyra's fingers danced over the controls, recalling tactics she had not used since she was queen. "Varen," she murmured, tracing his fleet movements. "He's trying to isolate the outer colonies. If he succeeds, the council will have enough support to block me completely." Ethan studied the map. "We can't fight him head-on, but we can make him doubt himself. Leaders crumble faster when they underestimate their opponents." Lyra's lips pressed together. "Then we'll make him crumble." Hours passed in quiet planning. Lyra issued secret communications to loyal commanders, placing trusted humans and Aurelians alike in key positions. Ethan coordinated communications across systems, his calm presence a counterweight to the storm of her memories and frustrations. Finally, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Lyra leaned back, exhaustion pressing against her. "I forgot what it felt like," she admitted softly. "To have allies who trust me, to have someone beside me who believes I'm worth more than a crown." Ethan's hand brushed hers. "You were always worth more than a crown. You just needed someone to remind the galaxy." Her eyes found his, warm and steady, and for the first time in years she allowed herself a small smile. But the moment was fleeting. A sharp ping on the comm alerted them. A message from Varen. The holographic image flickered into view, tall, sharp-featured, his uniform immaculate but his eyes cold. "Queen Lyra," he said smoothly, "I must admit I underestimated you. A human at your side, how quaint, but power is not given, it's taken, and I intend to take what is mine." Lyra's chest tightened. Betrayal lingered like a blade at her ribs. She had saved countless lives while he schemed, and now he dared to threaten her with the same empire he had helped destroy. Ethan stepped forward. "Then we'll show him what a queen truly looks like." Varen's image flickered and vanished, but the message was clear. The first battle for her resurgence had begun. Lyra turned toward the city. Lights flickered on across the streets, signaling citizens she had not yet met but who would remember her deeds. And somewhere in those lights, whispers of hope were growing. She clenched her fists. "They mocked me. she said softly, more to herself than anyone else. They laughed at a fallen queen, and they were wrong. Ethan's presence at her side was reassuring, unyielding. "We'll remind them," he said quietly, "that history remembers those who act with courage, not cowardice." The wind whipped around the balcony, carrying with it the scent of salt from the oceanic rings surrounding the capital. Lyra inhaled, letting the memory of loss and betrayal wash over her. Pain lingered, but so did strength. And as the first stars appeared in the night sky, she felt the stirring of something deeper, a purpose no mockery could touch. Because this was not just her return. It was her rise. Night had fully settled over the capital, but the glow of the twin suns, afterlight, still lingered on the horizon. Lyra and Ethan moved through the command hall, the hum of active systems filling the space with a quiet urgency. Every holographic map, every blinking light reminded them that the galaxy was awake and restless. A sudden alert snapped them both to attention. A fleet, unmarked and moving fast, was approaching the outer colonies. Varen's signature, swift, deadly. Calculations suggested he intended to cut off supply lines before reinforcements could arrive. "Varen's fleet is larger than we anticipated," Lyra said, eyes scanning the display. "If he hits the outer colonies, hundreds of thousands could die, and the Council will use that chaos to declare me unfit." Ethan leaned against the console, calm as ever. "Then we can't let him do either. You saved people once. You'll do it again, only this time you won't be alone." Her eyes met his. In them she saw trust, patience, and a quiet challenge. He wasn't just supporting her, he was daring her to rise fully, to embrace what she had hidden for too long, the queen she had always been. The fleet of ships appeared on the map, red blips moving in precise formation. Lyra's fingers flew over the controls. "We need to split their attention. Divide and confuse, hit the periphery while we prepare the main fleet for a counterstrike." Ethan watched her, impressed. "You've been away from command for years, and yet your instincts are sharp as ever." "I never lost them," Lyra said softly, almost to herself. "I just wasn't allowed to use them." Orders were sent to loyal commanders, messages encrypted and secure. Every movement calculated, every risk weighed. Lyra felt the familiar tension that came before battle, the tightening in her chest, the heat in her palms, the knowledge that lives depended on her choices. Then came the first transmission from the front lines. One of her most trusted captains, a young woman named Kayla, reported, "Queen Lyra, the enemy anticipates our maneuvers. They're faster than we expected. We need direct guidance." Lyra swallowed. Direct guidance meant being visible. It meant taking the risk herself. She looked at Ethan. "I will lead them," she said. Ethan nodded. "I'll coordinate support and communications. You focus on strategy." The first ships entered battle. From the control room, Lyra watched as her fleet engaged Varen's. Red streaks of energy lit the darkness of space. Explosions rippled across the void, and for a moment she felt the familiar fear claw at her heart. But she pushed it down, letting determination take its place. "Hold formation," she called, issuing orders with a voice that carried both command and reassurance. "Distract the center, hit the flanks, protect the colonies." As the battle unfolded, Ethan's voice came in through her comm link. Calm, precise, guiding the outer reinforcements where needed. She realized then that he wasn't just helping her, he was complementing her, strengthening her. Hours passed in a blur of light and sound. Ships fell, maneuvers succeeded and failed, and the stakes escalated with every pulse of energy. Finally, Lyra's tactics began to turn the tide. Varen's fleet, expecting hesitation from the so-called fallen queen, faltered under her decisiveness. Ships scattered, commanders hesitated, and soon his forces were in disarray. But then a new blip appeared on the map, Varen himself, aboard a command cruiser larger than any of hers. And it was moving directly toward her flagship. "He's coming for you," Ethan said quietly. "Direct confrontation, are you ready?" Lyra felt the fire of every past betrayal, every insult, every mocking word ignite within her. "I've been ready my whole life," she said. "I just didn't know it until now." The command room fell silent as her fleet braced. Outside, the stars seemed to bend in anticipation, as if the universe itself had paused to witness her rise. Ethan leaned closer, hand briefly brushing hers. "Whatever happens," he said softly, "we face it together." Lyra met his gaze. A strange calm settled over her, a clarity born from both fear and trust. "Then let him come," she whispered. And in that moment, for the first time in years, she felt truly alive. Not a fallen queen, not a mocking shadow of the past, but a ruler ready to reclaim everything, no matter the cost. The void of space stretched endlessly before Lyra's flagship. Stars glittered coldly, indifferent to the battle that was about to erupt. Varen's command cruiser loomed ahead, massive and menacing, its hull scarred from countless engagements yet gleaming with arrogance. Lyra stood on the bridge, crown glowing faintly, her hand resting lightly on the console. She could feel the pulse of the ship beneath her feet, the hum of loyal systems responding to her presence. She had led fleets before, but this was personal. Ethan's voice came softly in her earpiece. "He's expecting hesitation. That's your advantage." She nodded, swallowing a lump of tension in her throat. "Then we won't give him any." The first salvo hit her shields with a blinding flash. Alarms screamed. Lights flickered. Lyra's hand flew over the controls, issuing precise orders. The fleet responded instantly, flanking Varen's cruiser, forcing him to divert fire. "Good," Ethan muttered. "Keep him off balance, make him think he's dictating the fight." Minutes stretched into eternity. Lyra's mind raced through calculations, every maneuver, every possible outcome. Memories of betrayal, humiliation, and loss sharpened her resolve. Varen had underestimated her, assumed fear and hesitation would govern her actions. He was wrong. Finally, her flagship closed in on Varen's cruiser. Sensors indicated a weak point near the aft engines. Lyra's lips pressed into a thin line. She gave the command. A concentrated strike hit the target, sending a shockwave through the enemy vessel. Varen's voice boomed through the comm, bitter and incredulous. "You dare! I trained you, I taught you everything, and now you—" "Saved what matters," Lyra interrupted, voice calm but cutting. "I did not rise for pride, I did not fight for glory, I fight for my people and for justice." Her fleet pressed the advantage. Varen's forces began to crumble. Ships broke formation, captains hesitated, and the command structure that had once been his greatest strength disintegrated. But Varen was cunning. He initiated a boarding maneuver targeting Lyra's flagship directly. Security alarms blared. Lyra's hands tightened around the console. Ethan appeared at her side, a small smirk on his face despite the tension. "We can't let him set foot here. Are you ready?" She met his eyes. Something unspoken passed between them, a bond forged in fire and trust. "Always," she said. The boarding party breached the outer hull. Lyra and Ethan moved quickly, coordinating with security teams, setting traps, and guiding loyal soldiers. The first wave of intruders fell, disoriented and unprepared for the precision of her defense. Finally, Varen himself appeared, stepping through a breach. He was unarmed but dangerous, every movement calculated, eyes blazing with fury and disbelief. "You think you can defeat me?" he spat. "I built this empire, I made the council what it is. You are nothing without them." Lyra stepped forward, crown glowing brighter, aura of command radiating. "I am not nothing," she said steadily. "I am the queen you betrayed, the ruler you tried to destroy, and I am standing because I refuse to bow to fear or mockery." Varen lunged, but Lyra sidestepped with grace, guiding him into a security trap that restrained him instantly. His shock was palpable. Ethan's hand rested lightly on Lyra's shoulder. "It's over," he whispered. Varen struggled, voice breaking. This isn't real, you." "It is," Lyra said, voice echoing through the bridge. "And your time is done. The council will see the truth. The colonies will see the truth. History will remember." Varen's glare faltered, replaced by the first true fear she had seen in him. Lyra took a deep breath, letting the weight of every lost year, every insult, every betrayal settle into the moment. "Let this be a lesson," she said. "A queen may fall, she may be mocked, but when she rises, it is not with vengeance, it is with purpose." Ethan's presence beside her, steady and unwavering, made the victory feel even sweeter. Together, they had turned the tide not just of a battle, but of history itself. The bridge fell silent. Outside, Varen's fleet was scattering, leaderless and broken. The colonies were safe for now. Lyra removed her hand from the console, letting herself breathe for the first time in years. She had faced betrayal, humiliation, and almost every fear a ruler could know. And she had risen. The sun's twin rays stretched across the capital, casting golden light on towers that had long watched over a fractured empire. Lyra stood on the palace balcony, crown glowing faintly, hair stirred by the gentle wind. The city below was alive, not with fear or whispers of mockery, but with hope. Ethan stood beside her, quiet, letting her take in the moment. He didn't need words, his presence was enough. Together, they watched as loyal fleets returned from distant colonies, bringing news of safety, cooperation, and allegiance. "Look at them," Ethan said softly. "They waited for you to show them the truth." Lyra nodded, feeling a weight lift from her chest. Years of humiliation, exile, and betrayal had tried to define her, but now the galaxy was rewriting the story, and she was at its center. A calm alert interrupted the quiet. It was the High Counselor, shivering and defeated, requesting an audience. Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Do you want to hear him grovel?" Ethan asked with a faint smile. She chuckled softly. "No, I want him to understand why respect matters more than fear." The council chamber was tense when she entered. Nobles, once mocking and smug, bowed tentatively. The floor beneath them seemed alive with ancient recognition, the system still humming, attuned to her presence. "I am no longer a fallen queen," Lyra said, voice steady, echoing through the chamber. "I am the ruler of the Aurelian Reach, and my first decree, the council will act not to serve their pride, but to serve the people. Those who fail to uphold that will be removed." Gasps spread across the room. Even the most loyal nobles had never heard her speak with such authority. The High Counselor swallowed hard, voice trembling. "Your Majesty, we." "You will serve," Lyra interrupted, calm and commanding, "or step aside. The galaxy remembers those who act with courage, not those who cling to titles while abandoning responsibility." Ethan watched silently, letting her claim her rightful place. He had brought her here, yes, but this was hers alone. Later, as the first ambassadors from outer colonies arrived to pledge support, Lyra walked among them, listening to their stories of fear, hope, and loyalty. She realized then that ruling was not about crowns or commands. It was about connection, protection, and trust. One ambassador, a young woman with eyes wide and earnest, asked quietly, "How did you survive when all seemed lost?" Lyra looked at her, then at Ethan, and smiled. "I survived because I refused to let fear define me, and because sometimes the right people appear at the right time to remind you of your worth." Ethan stepped closer. "And sometimes," he said softly, "those people are humans." A laugh escaped her lips, warm and genuine. They walked together through the palace gardens, the night sky filled with stars that had witnessed centuries of history and would now witness her reign. In the coming days, fleets would be rebuilt, colonies reassured, and old wounds healed. Varen was imprisoned, his betrayal exposed, and the council reshaped to serve the people rather than its own ego. But Lyra knew this was only the beginning. Challenges would come, enemies would rise, doubts would whisper, yet she would face them all, not as a fallen queen, not as a shadow of the past. She would face them as herself. The queen who had been mocked, the queen who had been abandoned, the queen who had risen. Ethan's hand brushed hers again. "Are you ready?" he asked. Lyra looked out over her city, over the stars, and over the future she would build. Her heart swelled with certainty. "I am," she said, "and this time the galaxy will remember my name." Above, the twin suns dipped beneath the horizon, casting a radiant glow across the capital. And for the first time in decades, the people of the Aurelian Reach cheered, not for a crown, not for fear, but for a queen who had truly earned their loyalty. Because a fallen queen had been mocked. But a human had reminded the galaxy that greatness never truly dies.